welcome to Rich's Kitchen. Today, we'll be preparing two different dishes, both with Indian origins. Frankly, inspired by my recent trip to India. I got to spend 30 days there, both as a tourist, had a little business, and I took 4 cooking classes while I was there too. So in addition to the Indian cooking I was already doing, I got some inspiration from some really, really fine Indian chefs. The first thing we're going to do is a curry. And curries are basically many parts of the world, Asia, Africa, and the thing in common is mostly vegetables, sometimes some meat with a sauce. Being a vegetarian, this will be just a vegetarian curry. And this is one that's inspired from the south of India. The spices and the preparations and things are very different in the north and in the south. Some is the same, but there are a lot of differences, and that's one reason why I took classes in both. So we're going to add some oil. In India, instead of woks, most of the time they use a pan that's called a kadi. It's basically this kind of shape here, but much bigger and made out of anodized steel. I've got 2 on order right now. So I will be cooking with a kadi very soon. Most curries start with the aromatic spices. Some garlic, some ginger, some chilies. So we're going to start with some green chilies. These are Thai chilies. And we'll be making a raita, which is a yogurt dish that has the ability to cool some of the heat. So depending on how hot this ends up, it's nice to be able to throw some yogurt on top to cool it off some. So we're just going to get our most aromatic spices in here first. This is just one green chili. I don't know if you can hear the sizzle. And in India, again, mostly red onions. It's something that I have not done before when I was making my curries and other Indian food. So that was another little trick I picked up. They're a little sweeter, so it doesn't have quite as much bite as the white onion does. And not real small chop on the onion. Same thing with the tomato. The tomato will be a little bit bigger piece also. While the chilies and the onions are sauteing, I'll be adding about a teaspoon of coriander and a teaspoon of cumin. And we're going to do that a couple times in here. Layering the flavoring is really important. And as you do it in different layers, some of it cooks away and becomes sweeter. Some of it will remain quite spicy. I know I've shown you this trick before. The easiest way to peel ginger is just take a spoon. The skin is so soft and so thin, all you need to do is scrape it. And the ginger gets all clean. If you try chopping ginger, it's often got a lot of threads, a lot of sort of hairs. So the other way to prepare it, once I've trimmed this, is to use a microplane. That makes it so there's absolutely none of the little hairs. You can see it comes out a really nice, almost puree. And it makes handling the ginger just so much easier. They haven't come up with smell-o-vision yet. I know the smell of the ginger and the chilies and the onion are already getting strong in here. I know Steve the cameraman is smelling it. So we've got about a tablespoon of ginger, 1 chili pepper, about a half an onion, And a teaspoon each of the cumin and the coriander. Garlic. Again. The use of garlic and chilies and ginger are so primary in Indian cooking. The fact that there's so many different ways to prepare different dishes, even though those same three flavors are there, the flavors can end up very different. And you know, you can use these microplanes on garlic too. And it makes for a really nice mix. There. So much Indian food has that recognizable yellow color, and that is from the turmeric. So we're going to add at least 1 teaspoon of turmeric right now. And about a half a teaspoon of Kashmiri chili powder. Now the Kashmiri chili powder is hot, but it's actually mostly used because of its deep red color. There are other chili powders that have the same flavor, but doesn't quite impart that same dark red color. So this is coming along nice. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. We're going to add Roma tomatoes, just a couple of them. And again, a fairly rough chop, not real big, or not real small. While in India, it was an interesting experience to know that once we got there, you know, we were wanting to take pictures of everybody. You know, the public all wears just, the women are wearing saris, the men are wearing beautiful colors. But once we got there, everybody wanted to take pictures of us. We were the exotic ones in India. So there was a whole time, the entire month there, where we spent, where there'd be a couple people come up to us and ask us for a picture of us. And we'd say, sure, as long as we can take a picture of you. And within 5 minutes, we'd have anywhere from 10 to 20 people surrounding us, all wanting selfies with us. They were the ones wearing the exotic clothing. They were the ones wearing the fun stuff. Yet, we were the exotic ones. They wanted pictures of us. So, 100 times, at least, during the month while we were there. So I've got more pictures of sweet, smiling, darling Indian people, beautiful eyes, beautiful eye contact, and they just wanted pictures of us. Part of it was a sign that India's coming back. There was a lot of problem, like everywhere in the world, with COVID in the last few years. And frankly, India is so happy to see tourists, and that was part of what we were. We were part of so it's not like ambassadors, letting them know that it's coming back. So we now have onions, tomatoes, chili peppers, garlic. I'm turning this up so the tomatoes liquefy a little bit more. And it's just about time for the cabbage. Now I like using a lot of different kinds of cabbage, Savoy cabbage, and this cabbage is a little bit softer, a little more tender. Doesn't take quite as long to cook. Doesn't have as much of the tight ribs. One of the other experiences in India that we had was eating street food. Now, many places we were warned not to eat street food. Our stomachs probably not prepared for some of the food that's prepared in India. But with our guides and our drivers that we had, which were just lovely people also, we were able to eat food on the streets just like the locals. And that was so much more of an experience than eating in restaurants. All right. So this is coming together. Now I'm going to cover this and start on the next dish. Our next dish is an appetizer that can certainly be served as a side dish. Now the term kebab in India doesn't mean the same thing it does here. Most of the time here, when you think about kebab, it's there's fruits or vegetables and meat on a skewer and grilled. Kebab in India is simply vegetables that are fried into a patty. So what I have here, and to save time, I have already taken, this is peas and potatoes. And I've already taken the time to mash them. The peas are just frozen peas that are just put in a blender and blended. The potatoes are just boiled potatoes. So I'm going to take about half of this mushroom, half of the pea mixture here. And about the equivalent of about a third of that amount in potato. So we've got potato and peas here. And we're going to be putting these together, adding the spices, and then frying them. Now again, some of the same spices. Coriander, about a teaspoon. Cumin, about a teaspoon. We're going to take just a little bit of onion and dice it up really small so it fits in there. And do a really fine dice on this. While in India, we happened to be there during wedding season. Now, we did experience seeing 3 or 4 weddings. Now, Indian weddings are sort of have a reputation in the movies as being huge. The hotels were telling us that the weddings that were at the hotels that we were at were about 800 to 1,000 people, and they are 3 days non-stop. Generally, lots of fireworks, lots of music, trucks driving through with big, huge speakers. And round the clock. So the nights that we were staying in hotels where there were weddings, we definitely had a little less sleep. So I'm adding the chopped onions to the pea and potato mixture. Along with the peas and potatoes and the spices. In order to get it to stick. Thanks, Steve. Mm-hmm. Cameraman also helps cook. We need to add some water to the curry. We'll be adding coconut milk to it also. So this mixture of onion and peas and potatoes and spices, we'll be making the patties and frying, but they don't hold together really well unless you add besan flour, which again, for most of us are going to know that as garbanzo. This is just garbanzo flour. I'm just going to add in equivalent about 3 tablespoons. I'll add some Kashmiri chili powder to this as well. Just about a half a teaspoon of this. It's pretty hot. You can see it comes together and it ends up still being green. It's mostly the peas, about a third of the amount of potato, and the same usual 3 spices that we were adding into the other dishes. Now we're going to be coating these with the besan flour, the garbanzo flour. Let's see if our other pan is getting hot here. Okay. The next item to add into the curry, now that it's got enough moisture and all the cabbage is in here, is coconut. Again, the coconut and cabbage combination is, again, something else that's a southern India dish. And we're just going to throw in a handful. We'll taste it and see if it needs any more or less. It's unsweetened coconut. You don't want to use any of the sweetened stuff. And because I use the flakes, the coconut flakes, it'll be a nice texture in there too. It's really small. You taste it, but you won't really feel it in your mouth. And part of this is about feeling it in your mouth. There. Okay, so we're going to take this pea and potato mixture. First, make some little round balls. Flatten them a little bit. And just coat them in the garbanzo flour. Just make a nice little ball there. You can certainly make these bigger, almost into hamburger size, but for most people this is really good. And you can pick these up. We'll have a yogurt sauce to dip these in. Amongst the things we found while we were in India was people wanting to know exactly where we were from. I mean, they knew we weren't locals. And we'd say the US, and still very, very much positive relationship between India and the US most of the time. The other thing that was really nice to see in India, even though it's been a generation, the younger generation still very much reveres and loves Mahatma Gandhi, who is still very loved and a very important person in the Indian lexicon. A little messy, as you can see. Let's see here. Let's see if our oil's ready yet. Not quite. Gotta get a towel and clean off my hands. Time to check the curry again. Check the spicing on this. We're going to add some garam. Now, garam masala is a spice blend that, frankly, every family seems to have their own version of it. It's usually a combination of cumin and coriander and turmeric, usually some ginger. And every family seems to have their own version. It's usually a hot addition. And often the recipes for the garam masalas are secret. Families don't want to let anybody else know what their garam masala is made from. And you can see the yellow turmeric, even though I didn't put that much, is really the main color that you see in this curry. And the cabbage is getting more tender. Okay, my oil is getting hot enough now, so we're going to start frying the little kebabs. And again, as a reminder, they're peas, potatoes, cumin, coriander, some chilies, some onions, salt and pepper. And these don't take more than a couple minutes to cook on either side. Looks like I've got room for a couple more. Got a real education while we were in India also. Had some time at an Ayurvedic center that we had some treatments. Spent a day where they do hand-tied rugs, and just loved seeing the whole process of and how long and how generational it is. So many careers there. The families are, they've been doing it for years. We saw a rug group family, 6 generations that they've been making rugs. The kids were doing it, the parents were doing it, the grandparents were doing it. And very much expected that it'll just keep going. So the family business situation that is there, very unlike what's in this country. I'm going to do a little cleanup here. Next, I'll make the raita, and the raita is a yogurt sauce that is basically goes on to cool virtually any of the other Indian dishes. Whether the kebabs will get dipped in there, or it goes on top of the curry. Now, as a finishing touch for the curry, a couple things. We add some coconut milk. And we're just adding about 5-6 ounces of that. We're going to add some ghee. Ghee just adds a richness and a flavor. A little more oil, a little more grease. And another thing to top off your curry with is just some whole cream. Again, it's not done everywhere, but it's definitely a part of the cooking in southern India. So we'll see how that. Much of the time, curries are served over rice. I didn't bring any rice since we only have two burners here. But much of the time, this is done served over rice, or with one of the Indian breads, chapati or naan. Let's see how our kebabs are doing. Not quite time to flip them yet. So we will make our raita now. And again, that's a nice condiment to add to almost any Indian dish. Most raita is mostly yogurt. Often has cucumber, little onion, little tomato, little cumin in it. So that's what I'll be adding. So just some very small diced onion and cucumber that goes into the raita. The basin powder that I use to coat the kebabs with, pretty much available at most health food stores. If you happen to live somewhere where you have an Indian market, that's even better. The Indian market will have more varieties, more choices of that kind of thing. So, and Asian and Indian markets are pretty plentiful in the bigger cities these days. So we're going to add the cucumber. And just a little bit of onion. And just a rough chop. And a little bit of cumin. And that will be a really nice cooling effect. Let's check these now. Good, they're perfect to turn. I don't know if you can hear the sizzling. But this is what these are looking like now. Okay, so we have cabbage and coconut curry with tomatoes and onions and spices. And spinach and pea and potato kebabs. With a raita to go over the top. Being a vegetarian, it's one of the few places I've traveled to that instead of losing weight on trips, I gained weight. Normally I have to be pretty watchful of where I go and where I eat, and often there isn't a lot of vegetarian choices. India, it was heaven. I really had a chance to eat anything I wanted 3 meals a day. I mean, my Indian breakfasts looked pretty close to my Indian dinners. But eating Indian food 3 times a day was just absolutely the best. Okay, the last step for the curry is just to sprinkle some raw cashews on top. Again, texture. Put these kebabs on here. I know the TV crew will be eating kebabs and curry in just a few minutes. A couple more minutes on that. But the curry is absolutely done. Looking lovely and smelling good. Okay, turn it up. Pea and potato kebabs, raita, and cabbage curry. We'll be doing more Indian dishes each month. And there you have it. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming to Rich's Kitchen.